Beneath the surface of the ordinary, something extraordinary hides in plain sight. A horseshoe crab drags itself across a moonlit beach. Its armor gleams wet under the stars. 450 million years ago, its ancestors did exactly the same thing. On the same beaches, under the same moon. While continents collided and split apart, while mountains rose and eroded into dust, while entire dynasties of dinosaurs came and went, the horseshoe crab stayed. This is not laziness. This is not accident. This is one of evolution's greatest mysteries. We call them living fossils, species that appear frozen in time. The coelacanth, a fish thought extinct for 65 million years, until a fisherman pulled one from the deep in 1938. The nautilus, spiraling through tropical waters with a body plan unchanged since before the first forests grew on land. The ginkgo tree, whose leaves fall golden in autumn just as they did when the first flowers had not yet bloomed. Charles Darwin himself was troubled by them. He saw evolution as a relentless engine of change, yet here were creatures that seemed to have pressed pause. He called it a difficulty, a puzzle that didn't fit. For over a century, scientists searched for answers. Were these species somehow protected from the forces that reshaped everything else? Or was something deeper at play? The answer begins not with what has changed, but with what has not. Evolution is often imagined as progress, a march toward complexity, intelligence, perfection. But evolution has no direction, no goal. It is simply a response to pressure. And if there is no pressure, there is no change. Living fossils inhabit what biologists call stable environments. The deep ocean, ancient river systems, isolated islands, places where the rules have remained the same for unimaginable spans of time. The nautilus drifts in the twilight zone of tropical seas, where temperature, pressure, and prey have barely shifted in 300 million years. Its shell, its tentacles, its jet propulsion, still perfect, still enough. The tuatara, a reptile clinging to windswept islands off New Zealand, lives in a cold that keeps competitors away. Its slow metabolism, its ancient skull structure, these are not relics. They are solutions that still work. But stability is only part of the story, because some living fossils exist in environments that have changed. Dramatically, the Amazon has flooded and dried. Climates have swung between ice and fire. Yet the arapaima, a fish older than the Amazon itself, still breathes air at the surface, still grows to the size of a man. So the question sharpens. Why do some species evolve rapidly in response to change, while others remain untouched by it? The answer lies hidden in something we cannot see. In the architecture of genes, in the mathematics of survival, and in a principle that overturns everything we thought we knew about evolution. It begins with a concept that sounds impossible: evolutionary stasis. In 1972, two paleontologists proposed an idea that shocked their field. Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge looked at the fossil record and saw something everyone else had ignored. Species did not change gradually over millions of years. Instead, they appeared suddenly, remained stable for vast stretches of time, then either vanished or gave rise to new species, again, suddenly. They called it punctuated equilibrium. Long periods of stasis, interrupted by brief bursts of change. The theory was controversial, but the evidence was undeniable. When you trace a fossil lineage through deep time, you do not see smooth transitions. You see flat lines. Stasis, stability that lasts for millions of years. And then, in a geological instant, something new appears. This was not what Darwin predicted. He imagined evolution as a slow grind, invisible across human lifetimes, but relentless over epochs. Yet here in the rocks was proof that most species, most of the time, do not evolve at all. They stay the same. Living fossils are the extreme expression of this pattern. They are species trapped, or perhaps perfected, in stasis, not for thousands of years, but for hundreds of millions. So what holds them there? One answer lies in the concept of stabilizing selection. Imagine a species perfectly suited to its environment. Its body is the right size, its metabolism balanced, its senses attuned. Every trait is optimized for survival. Now imagine that environment does not change. Any mutation that alters the body becomes a disadvantage. Too large, you starve. Too small, you are eaten. Too fast, you burn energy. Too slow, you are caught. Natural selection does not push the species forward. It holds it in place. This is stabilizing selection, a force that punishes deviation and rewards sameness. The horseshoe crab, with its heavy shell and slow movement, is exquisitely tuned to scavenging on shallow seafloors. For hundreds of millions of years, that niche has existed, unchanged. And so the horseshoe crab remains unchanged too. But stabilizing selection alone cannot explain everything, because some living fossils survive catastrophes, mass extinctions that wipe out 90% of life on Earth, the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs, the volcanic eruptions that choked the skies with ash. The coelacanth survived them all. How? The answer involves a second principle, one that sounds almost paradoxical: evolutionary flexibility through genetic constraint. Living fossils often have what scientists call low evolvability. Their genetic architecture is rigid. Mutations that would allow rapid change are suppressed or lethal. Their development is so finely tuned that any deviation breaks the system. In most species, this would be a death sentence. But in stable environments, it becomes an advantage, because a species that cannot easily change will not drift into maladaptation. It will not waste energy experimenting with new forms. It will remain exactly what it needs to be. The ginkgo tree, for instance, has a remarkably stable genome. Its genes resist the kind of shuffling and duplication that drive rapid evolution in other plants. For 270 million years, this genetic conservatism has kept the ginkgo a ginkgo. Yet when catastrophe strikes, these species do not adapt. They endure. They retreat to refuges, deep water, hidden caves, isolated pockets where the old rules still apply. And when the world recovers, they emerge, unchanged, unbroken, ancient. But there is something else, something even stranger. Because some living fossils are not locked in stable environments at all. They live in rivers that flood and dry, in oceans that warm and cool, in forests that burn and regrow. And yet they do not evolve. Why? The answer takes us into the hidden mathematics of survival. Not all environments are created equal. A coral reef may look vibrant and dynamic, but in evolutionary terms, it is predictable. The same temperatures, the same chemistry, the same players, dancing the same ancient dance. A river, on the other hand, floods in spring and shrinks in summer. But the cycle repeats, year after year, millennium after millennium. For a species, this is not chaos. It is rhythm, and rhythm does not demand change. It demands resilience. The lungfish, a creature that has barely changed in 400 million years, lives in rivers that dry to mud for months at a time. When the water disappears, the lungfish burrows into the sediment and enters a state of suspended animation. Its metabolism slows. Its body waits. When the rains return, it awakens. This is not adaptation in the evolutionary sense. This is flexibility built into an ancient design. The lungfish does not need to evolve because it already possesses the tools to survive variability. Its ancestors, swimming in the swamps of the Devonian, faced the same challenge. And the solution they found still works. But what about species that face not rhythm, but true upheaval? The platypus, egg-laying mammal of Australia, carries traits from reptiles, birds, and mammals all at once. It is a mosaic of ancient features: electroreception, venomous spurs, a bill like a duck. Australia has changed dramatically over 50 million years. Rainforests became deserts. Ice ages came and went. Yet the platypus remains. Why? Because it is a generalist. Living fossils are often thought of as specialists, locked into narrow niches. But some are the opposite. They are so broadly adapted that no single change in environment can threaten them. The crocodile, virtually unchanged for 80 million years, thrives in freshwater and saltwater. It hunts fish, birds, mammals. It can go months without food. It regulates its body temperature behaviorally, basking in sun or retreating to water. It is not perfectly adapted to one thing. It is adequately adapted to everything. And in evolution, adequate is often enough. Yet this raises another question. If these species are so resilient, so well suited to survival, why are they so rare? Living fossils represent a tiny fraction of life. Most lineages change, diversify, or disappear. The trilobites, once as common as insects, are gone. The ammonites, spiraled and beautiful, vanished with the dinosaurs. So why do a lucky few persist? The answer lies not just in biology, but in mathematics. Population size, reproduction rate, generation time. Species that evolve quickly tend to be small, fast-breeding, and numerous. Bacteria, insects, rodents. They produce thousands of offspring. Mutations spread rapidly. Natural selection acts on every generation. Living fossils are often the opposite. The coelacanth lives for 60 years. It gestates its young for 5. A female may produce only a handful of offspring in her lifetime. The nautilus grows slowly, matures late, reproduces rarely. In these species, evolution moves in slow motion. Mutations arise infrequently. Selection acts gently. Genetic diversity remains low. But low diversity, in a stable environment, is not a weakness. It is stability. Because when every individual is similar, the species does not drift. It does not split into competing forms. It remains coherent. One species, one solution, one unbroken thread stretching back through deep time. And yet, even this does not explain the most mysterious living fossils of all. The ones that should have changed. The ones that faced extinction events, climate swings, and the rise of fierce competitors, but didn't. To understand them, we must go deeper still into the hidden structure of ecosystems and the strange loops of evolutionary feedback that can lock a species in place forever. Imagine a predator so successful that it eliminates all competition. It dominates its niche so completely that no rival can challenge it. What happens next? It stops evolving. This is called evolutionary stagnation through ecological dominance. When a species becomes the apex of its world, natural selection eases. There is no pressure to improve, no rival to outpace, no enemy to outwit. The shark, in its modern form, has prowled the oceans for over 100 million years. Its body is hydrodynamic perfection. Its senses acute. Its jaws devastatingly efficient. Nothing swims faster. Nothing hunts better. So the shark does not change. But dominance alone is not enough to explain stasis. Because some living fossils are not dominant at all. The tadpole shrimp, a tiny crustacean found in temporary desert pools, has remained unchanged for 220 million years. It is not an apex predator. It is not even particularly competitive. It simply persists. How? The answer lies in a concept called ecological redundancy. In a complex ecosystem, many species compete for the same resources. If one declines, another takes its place. Evolution is driven by this competition, species constantly jockeying for advantage. But in simple, isolated ecosystems, there are fewer players. The tadpole shrimp lives in ephemeral pools that appear after rain and vanish weeks later. Few other species can survive there. Competition is minimal. Without competitors, there is no evolutionary arms race. The tadpole shrimp faces the same challenge its ancestors did: hatch quickly, eat algae, reproduce before the water disappears. The solution has not changed. So neither has the shrimp. But the most haunting explanation for evolutionary stasis is not ecological. It is genetic. Deep within the DNA of living fossils, scientists have discovered something unexpected. Regulatory networks, genes that control how other genes are expressed, are often more conserved than the genes themselves. Think of it like this. The blueprint for building a body is not just a list of parts. It is a set of instructions for when and how to assemble them. In most species, mutations can tweak these instructions. A gene activates earlier. A protein is produced in a different tissue. Small changes lead to new traits. But in living fossils, these regulatory networks are locked. Mutations occur, yes, but they are filtered out by developmental constraints. The body plan is so integrated, so interdependent, that any change disrupts the whole system. The result is not evolution. It is death. This is why the nautilus, despite living through mass extinctions and climate upheavals, retains its spiral shell. The shell is not just armor. It is a buoyancy system, a growth pattern, a structural necessity. Change the shell, and the entire animal fails. So the shell does not change. And yet, there is one more piece to the puzzle. One that forces us to rethink what we mean by unchanged. Because when scientists sequence the genomes of living fossils, they find something surprising. The DNA is not identical to ancient ancestors. Mutations have accumulated. Genes have drifted. The molecular clock has ticked forward. But the body, the phenotype remains the same. This is called phenotypic stasis despite genetic change. It means that evolution is happening at the molecular level, but it is hidden, invisible, buffered by redundancy in the genetic code, by robustness in development, by selection that favors only the traits that matter. The coelacanth's genome has evolved, but its fins, its lobed structure, its slow predatory style, these remain frozen. So living fossils are not frozen in time. They are sculpted by time, refined, tested, and held in place by forces so precise, so unforgiving, that any deviation is erased. They are not relics. They are survivors. But survival, as we are about to see, comes with a cost. Every living fossil is a gamble. A bet placed millions of years ago that the world will not change too much, too fast. For a long time, that bet has paid off. But the world is changing now, faster than it has in 65 million years. And living fossils, for all their resilience, are not built for rapid change. The horseshoe crab, ancient survivor of 5 mass extinctions, now faces a new threat. Humans harvest them by the millions. Their blue blood, unique in all of nature, is used to test vaccines and medical equipment. Every year, 500,000 are captured, bled, and released. Many do not survive. Their breeding beaches are developed. Coastal erosion accelerates. Water temperatures rise. The horseshoe crab has no evolutionary playbook for this. It cannot adapt fast enough. The coelacanth, deep-sea ghost, is caught as bycatch in fishing nets. Its population is fragmented. Its refuge is shrinking. The ginkgo, once widespread across the northern hemisphere, survives in the wild only in a small region of China, if it survives there at all. Most ginkgos today are cultivated, planted in city parks and temple gardens. Living fossils are, almost without exception, vulnerable, not because they are weak, but because they are specialized in stability. And stability is the one thing we have taken from them. Yet there is a paradox here. Some living fossils are thriving. The American alligator, nearly hunted to extinction in the 1960s, has rebounded. Protected by law, it now numbers in the millions. The nautilus, despite being harvested for its shell, persists in remote Pacific reefs. The tuatara, once widespread across New Zealand, clings to offshore islands. But it clings. Why do some survive while others fade? The answer is often a matter of luck, geography, human intervention, the presence of refuges where the old rules still apply. But it is also a matter of time. Because evolution, for all its power, is not fast. A species cannot reinvent itself in a century. It cannot adapt to a world remade in decades. Living fossils, with their long generation times and low genetic diversity, are the slowest to respond. They are trapped by the very traits that allowed them to endure. And so we arrive at a question that has no easy answer. Should we protect living fossils? They are not, in the traditional sense, important to ecosystems. The horseshoe crab is not a keystone species. The coelacanth does not regulate ocean health. They are evolutionary footnotes, relics of lost worlds. But they are also something more. They are proof that life can endure, that a solution, once found, can outlast continents, that the past is not always inferior to the present. To lose them would be to lose a library of ancient knowledge, written not in books, but in blood and bone and DNA. The history of life on Earth is not a story of constant progress. It is a story of survival, of lineages that found a way and held on, through asteroid impacts and ice ages, through volcanic winters and oceans of acid. Living fossils are the victors of deep time. But victory in the past does not guarantee survival in the future. And as we reshape the world faster than evolution can respond, we must ask ourselves, what do we owe to the old ones? There is a tree in the botanical gardens of London, a ginkgo, planted in 1762. Its leaves turn gold every autumn, just as they did when dinosaurs walked beneath its ancestors. It has survived wars, pollution, climate shifts. It may outlive us all. Living fossils force us to confront a truth about evolution that is uncomfortable. Change is not always improvement. Complexity is not always better. The newest is not always the strongest. The horseshoe crab, with its simple brain and ancient body, has outlasted 99% of species that ever lived. The shark, with its cartilage skeleton and primitive jaw, dominates the oceans. The crocodile, cold-blooded and patient, watch as mammals come and go. They are old, but they are not obsolete. For most of history, we have thought of evolution as a ladder. Primitive organisms at the bottom, humans at the top. Living fossils shatter that illusion. They show us that evolution is not a ladder. It is a tree, branching endlessly in all directions. Some branches grow quickly, burst into flowers, and die. Others grow slowly, silently, and reach across eons. Neither is better. Both are evolution. So why do some species not change? Because they do not need to. Because their environment rewards constancy over novelty. Because their bodies are so finely tuned that any deviation is fatal. Because they occupy niches where the rules have not changed. Because they are generalists, flexible enough to weather storms. Because they reproduce slowly, locking in stability. Because they are dominant, facing no pressure to improve. Because their genes are buffered, hidden from selection. Because they are lucky. And because, in the end, survival is not about being the best. It is about being good enough. But the story of living fossils is not just about the past. It is about the future. Because as the world changes, as climates shift and ecosystems collapse, we may need the lessons they carry. Resilience, patience, the ability to endure when everything else falls apart. These are not relics of a primitive age. They are strategies for survival. In the deep ocean, a coelacanth drifts through the dark. It has no idea it is a living fossil. It does not know that its kind was thought extinct for 65 million years. It does not care that scientists call it a relic. It simply is. And perhaps that is the final answer. Life does not exist to evolve. It exists to survive. And the species that master survival, in whatever form it takes, are the ones that endure. The horseshoe crab crawls back into the sea. The ginkgo drops its golden leaves. The nautilus spirals into the deep. Unchanged, unbroken, ancient, and still here. The question is not why some species have not changed. The question is, what will it take for them to finally disappear? And do we want to find out?